the science of reading, from Voyer Sopris, and they will explain to us really what's happening with literacy and how the Literacy Act is not just saying we're going to do better, but how we will do better.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I have had the unique privilege of working for the last 13 years with both Alabama and Mississippi on trying to champion this literacy challenge that we have been facing. And as such, I have encountered so many remarkable people and hardworking people, and I'm truly honored at the work that is continuing to go on every day. But before I give a little overview of what is happening in the two states that I am privileged to serve, I do want to make one thing very clear. There are no magic bullets, and there is nothing that is going to happen overnight to fix these problems. These are long-term problems that require long-term commitment, and we are privileged that we have those people making those long-term commitments in both Alabama and Mississippi. So Ryan mentioned that his daughter has the privilege of being in a letters-trained classroom. Cassandra Wheeler and I represent Voyager Sopris Lexia Learning, and we are the PD providers for both Alabama and Mississippi, representing the letters curriculum. Cassandra will overview for you guys in a moment what the letters curriculum actually is, but I wanted to just take a minute and tell you how we got to be a partner with these two great states. As Ryan said, back in 2013, the state of Mississippi looked closely at what Alabama had been doing in ARI and started to develop the Strong Readers, Strong Leaders initiative towards literacy. And part of that initiative was based on these 4 pillars. The first was an Early Learning Collaborative Act in 2013, followed closely by the really big one, which was the Literacy-Based Promotion Act of 2013. That's the one that is the most similar to what we have here in Alabama as the Alabama Literacy Act. But then they piggybacked it to make sure that the focus was not on just promotion. We weren't just trying to promote kids to 3rd grade as if that was a magic gateway, but we were also going to focus on the steps that it takes to get to 3rd grade all along the way: pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. And with that came the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment in 2014. What that assessment did was give a little pulse check at the end of kindergarten to determine how we're doing after that first year of K through 12 education. How are we doing in preparing those students to move on to 1st grade? And then offering also the 4th pillar, the dyslexia scholarships for students with dyslexia who need specialized services that other schools could provide. So here's where we come in. At the very beginning, we started training all teachers in letters, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. Year 1, we undertook the challenge of training 3,000 teachers in the state of Mississippi. It was so popular that by year 2, we had to up that number to 3,500 more teachers. By year 3, 3,000 more. And then after that, over the last 9 years, we are now proud to say that we have trained almost 15,000 teachers in the state of Mississippi on how to implement the science of reading. So what are the results? I mentioned there are no magic bullets. This takes time. So after the first year on the statewide 3rd grade reading assessment, 85% of students were at the passing rate set by Mississippi. After only 1 more year, that number raised to 87, 1 more year, 92, and 1 more year, 93. So this is that 3rd grade gateway assessment that everybody likes to think about. So what did Mississippi do? Did they rest on their laurels? Did they decide, great, 93 sounds good, let's just keep cooking with that? No, they raised the bar. They decided 93 is great, but we're going to even raise the bar even higher to ensure that a minimum level of literacy isn't low. We're going to raise it up to the next level up to continue to challenge our students and our teachers to reach the highest levels of literacy that they can. Over these first 4 years of the implementation, however, there were people who wanted to focus just on the promotion aspect of the bill. And to those people, I will say, I was extremely pleasantly surprised when, after looking at the data, we actually learned that from 2014 to 2018, third grade retentions in the state of Mississippi actually reduced by 59%. Now, how do you do that? How do you reduce retentions at third grade when you're implementing a retention bill? This is how you do it. You focus on kindergarten. You focus on first grade. You focus on second grade, so that by the time they get to third grade, there is no longer the need to retain them because they've received the foundation that they needed at K1 and 2. So likewise, just as we saw the gains in Mississippi on the third grade assessment, similar gains and even stronger gains have been seen on that kindergarten assessment. 54% were ready in year 1, 63 in year 2, 65 in year 3, et cetera, et cetera. So at no point are either Alabama or Mississippi looking at only one data point to determine the success of what is going on in either state. So then magic happened. And then I thought, oh, my work here is done. No, not really, just beginning. In 2018, Alabama and Mississippi started working together through collaborative discussions to determine what was working well in both states and borrow the things from Mississippi that were working well there and vice versa in Alabama. Through work with the Alabama Council on Higher Education, the Alabama Department of Education, and the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education, communication opened, which led to the Alabama Literacy Act. As such, we have been implementing letters, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling in Alabama now since 2018. To date, we have over 15,000 teachers in only 3.5 short years who are actively engaged in science of reading training through language essentials of teachers of reading and spelling. That's through the commitment of the Alabama legislature, the Alabama Department of Ed, Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education, and AIC, all making sure that teachers are getting what they need to better serve the K-3 students in our state. So how's that working? We had a little thing come up March a couple years ago. Might remember it. We've been home a lot. Okay. As such, I really worried that this was going to be the end, or at least the big stall on what had started with the work that both of my states, I call them my states, have been accomplishing. Not to be. These teachers and these administrators in our states have been unwavering in their commitment to keep the ball rolling, to keep it going, despite the greatest obstacles that we've probably ever faced, at least in my lifetime, COVID. So when is this training happening? This training is happening during school, after school, on Saturdays. So the teachers that are in the schools battling everything they battle on a daily basis are committing all of this time to this professional development because they know that their students need this. And not only their students, but their students' families, their communities, and our whole state needs this literacy. So have they complained about it? A little, but not a lot. This pie chart shows that 89% of the teachers and administrators who engaged in letters training in the state of Alabama rank it as excellent. Another 9% rank it as good. We'll take that. And the other 2%, well, there you go. We won't talk about those guys. No, I'm just kidding. They're entitled to that opinion. But getting this type of positive result during a pandemic with the level of commitment that this course entails truly speaks to the professionalism of our educators and how this course and this commitment from our state is raising the profession of being an educator. So how's it working? This is a diagram of feedback from the teachers. I think it speaks volumes here too, that the two biggest words that have come out of the surveys are great and reading. Here we go. But we all know we have some schools in our state that are struggling more than others. Those schools are receiving special focus, not only from us here at Voyager Sopris and Lexia Learning, but also from ARI and their state staff and the regional staff who serve them. And as such, even during a pandemic, our full support schools, which represent the lowest 52 performing elementary schools in the state of Alabama, even during a pandemic, 65% of those schools, if we looked at their data from spring of 2021, would no longer be in the lowest 5%. That's how hard these guys are working. That's amazing. But we're not only moving up from the bottom. I've heard it said, there's a critique of that, well, somebody's always going to be at the bottom. Okay? Well, that's true. So what do? You continue to raise the bar. You continue to raise the expectation. But these lowest 52 schools also are moving the top. 62% of these schools also had a dramatic increase in the number of students who scored at a level 3 and 4. So we're not just moving them up from the bottom, we're moving up into the tippy top of these evaluations as well. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Cassandra Wheeler, who's going to talk to you a little bit about more of the experience these teachers are having.
The college professor who said, "Such wrong in the student is a shame. Lack of preparation in high school is to blame." Said the high school teacher, "That boy is the fool. The fault, you see, is with the middle school." The middle school teacher said, "From such stupidity may I be spared. They sent him to me so unprepared." The primary teacher said, "The kindergarten, blockheads all. They call it preparation. Why, it's worse than none at all." The kindergarten teacher said, "Such lack of training never did I see. What kind of woman must his mother be?" The mother said, "Poor helpless child, he's not to blame. His father's folks are just the same." Said the father at the end of the line, "I doubt that rascal is even mine." Oh. Y'all know that blame game can go on and on and on. Who's at fault when students don't meet grade level expectations? Who's at fault when students leave and they don't have reading skills? Who's at fault? Is it kindergarten? They weren't doing the right things back then? Is it middle school? Could it be dad's genes? Right? But here's the truth of the matter. 95% of all students can learn to read. 95%. They have the cognitive capability of learning to read. Well, let's break that down. But that 95%, first of all, it requires explicit, systematic instruction that's based on sound scientific research. So that 95% of that capability is possible because the kids come cognitively able, but that's hard work. That 95% is hard work. The other 5% are students that suffer from some severe cognitive disability that would prevent them from being a good reader. So look at the average classroom. We break this down like, how do we determine what comprises that 95%? So in the average classroom, we look at those kids in green. Those are 30% of the students that come into our classrooms. And no offense to the teacher, but they're going to do well regardless of the classroom environment. It doesn't matter if their teacher went to Auburn University or Alabama State or Tuskegee University. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening in that classroom because 30% of those students that are in green are going to do well regardless. But then look at the yellow group. That's 50% of the kids in our classroom that will do well if they have a high quality core tier 1 instruction. Again, that's explicit and systematic and gives them the foundations that they need. Then you still got 15% in blue. I think about that because they're holding their breath, right? They're waiting for something else because not all core instruction meets the needs of all kids. So if they're falling through that core and they need something else, they need more time, they need more resources, that's 15% of the kids that are holding their breath. Because you know, when you come across that word that you don't know, what do? They hold their breath, right? So 15% of those kids are in need of something above and beyond the core instruction. Then you've got the 5% out, like I said, they have a severe cognitive disability that would prevent them from being a proficient reader. So if 95% of our students come to us cognitively capable, how is it that on the NAEP in 4th grade, nationally, over half of our students by 4th grade can't pass the NAEP, can't pass the reading assessment on the NAEP? How in the world does that happen? Well, remember I talked about with this possibility and this hard work and the effort that it takes? Let's kind of break that down to what that actually looks like in the realm of what our instruction should be for our students. And there's this great debate about the shift from balanced literacy to structured literacy. Well, what is that? Well, at first glance, they look kind of similar. There's some good things going on there. On the balanced side, you need things like reading and writing. That's good stuff. Spelling and phonics and some other skills. But on the structured side, oh, wow, that's very direct. These are the exact things that we need and should be happening and should be teaching. And our kids need to learn within the structured literacy component. We leave nothing to chance. We're going to give you exactly what you need. But then we go a little deeper. On the balance side, it's kind of vague. You know, it's a little exploratory. Give it to them. They'll figure it out. It just takes a little, over time, they'll get it. Look at the picture and figure out what that is. Sound it out. Well, if I knew the sound and if I understood what the little squiggly lines meant, maybe I could. But in structured literacy, oh, no. There's no guesswork. It is very specific. It is very direct. I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to learn. And I'm not going to leave anything to chance. And luckily for that, that's why on the balance side, it's very non-explicit. But on the structured side, it is very explicit. Here are today's objectives. So if we were trying to get to the Vulcan, the balanced literacy side would sound like this. Yeah, you know, just go down the road a piece and hang a left on that, where that big building is with the blue windows, hang a left. And if you're lucky and you can see it from where you're driving, you might make it to the Vulcan. But structured literacy is that GPS that gives you that turn by turn on this street, turn on this street, turn left, turn right, and you'll get to the Vulcan much faster with greater ease. It may, you just got to listen to the instructions. On the balance side, you may possibly get to the Vulcan, but you're going to enjoy Birmingham along the way. You're going to pass by UAB and, right? There's a big difference there. Here's some good news. As hard as this work is, and when it has to take place, over half of our colleges and universities are on board. They get it. The science of reading must be taught in our teacher ed programs to our undergraduate professionals before they go into the career. And so over half have gotten an understanding. But for those of our universities that don't have the 5 big ideas as part of their course syllabi, then how do the teachers get access to the tools and resources and the knowledge and skills that they need to teach our kids and make them more proficient in reading? How else do they get that? Because it's more than just the words on the page. Literacy starts in the brain. Yeah, there's something called a reading brain. And if you are a teacher of students and you teach reading or literacy or spelling or any of those designs under the balanced literacy structure or the structured literacy structure, you need to understand this. So that's why the structured literacy is so critical, because these elements of the science of reading, there's no mistake about it. As humans, our brains have evolved over time. Oral language is the first place we start. It does not start when you pick up the book. It happens long before the book. It happens when you bring that baby home from the hospital and you kiss on that baby and you love that baby and you put that baby in the bassinet. You know how y'all do. It's a mama's baby. And the baby's looking and the eyes are going and the tongue and the lips and the teeth start going. And there's all the mama, da. And they're on the floor, right? You know how y'all do. Oh, come on, you can do it. Walk to mama. You can do it. Walk to dad. What does the baby do? Right? Here they come. You don't have to have a sign that says, come hither. You don't need a t-shirt that says, walk this way. They get it from the motioning and the beckoning because oral language develops first, and it's happening from the time we are born. If you were a teacher and you don't understand that reading starts in the brain, we have a problem. So here's what happens when we think about what that instruction looks like. I'm about to check to see if you all are phonologically aware. Let's do a little test, shall we? All right, everybody sit up straight. Channel your brains. All right, we're going to see how well you are with your own phonological processing. Now think about this. We're talking about the sounds of our language, right? Everybody do this. It's a big umbrella. I don't see you. I don't see you. It's a big umbrella under which everything else falls. But it must first start with the sounds, what we hear and how we say it and how we speak it, before we get to the symbols to make those connections and those relationships. So think about the sounds. So think about this. How many syllables are in each of the following words? Get ready. Cleaned. 1. Okay, that's good. Appreciated. I see someone over here going, they're clapping it out. Don't be scared. Clap it out. Clap it out. Appreciate it. How many? 5. Poetic. I love you. I see you clapping. I love it. Incredible. Aha, so far so good. Now think about this. Let's recognize rhyme. You ready? Thumbs up if the following words rhyme, thumbs down if they don't. Get your hands ready. Here we go. But, put. Good. Been, when. Now see, I'm from Alabama. I'm a true Southerner. I say been, when, but it probably should be been, when. I don't say it. Did y'all say it like that? I don't say it like that. I'm an Alabama girl. Been, when. Thumbs up. Loyal, toil. You watching them, Laura? Watch them, Laura. All right. Merry, scary. Yeah. Now, what can you not rely on with merry and scary? Right. Because remember now, we're focusing on the sounds. Right now, there are no words per se. With letters, we're talking about the sounds. On, yawn. I see some pauses. Don't be scared. Put your thumbs up there. Don't be scared. All right, now watch this. Let's think about how do you pronounce each of the following words? Get ready. How do you pronounce each of the following words? Tomato. But if I were British, tomato, right? How do you pronounce this word? Parker. But if we were from Boston, Parker. See how all that changes just that quick? What about this word? But what if we were from like the Midwest, some of the New England area? All, right? Makes a difference. What about this word? Caught. But I was born in New Jersey. Caught. I caught you. I caught you. Right? What about this one? Anybody have roots in deep rural Alabama? What is it? Wash. Right. So it makes a huge difference from our regional background, our ethnic background, what other parts of the world we're from. Those things make a difference, right? But we don't stop there. When we think about how we develop our phonological awareness, I'm going to give you one more test. Are y'all ready? I'm going to blow your minds with this one. I want you to do phoneme deletion. Some of you are all going, what's a phoneme? Right? The smallest sound symbol that we utter in a word, okay? So I'm going to ask you to take one of those sounds out and give me the new word. You ready? Say master. Say master. Say it again without the s. Say it again. Matter, matter. All right, try this. Say smoke. Say smoke. Say it again without the Oh, you watching them, Laura? Okay. Watch this. Say sink. Say sink. Say it again without the Sick. Ooh, I almost tricked somebody on this side of the room. All right. Last one. Tricky one. Say six. Say six. Say it again without the right? So imagine in this room, with you all being able to process that, imagine the skill, the knowledge, and the know-how that our classroom teachers need to be able to do that successfully with our students. Because you can't teach what you don't know. So we are so grateful for Dr. Louisa Moats and Dr. Carol Toman, who have developed and created LETERS, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. You say it. When I talked about those 5 big ideas that are so critical that we teach in colleges, here they are. Our course syllabi for our teacher ed programs that are producing students that go out into the world with degree in hand to get a job and come to Alabama or go to Mississippi, they need to get this when they're in their teacher ed programs. These are the 5 most critical components of the foundations of reading. Will you say them with me? Here we go. Phonemic awareness, I don't hear you. Phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. But we don't stop there. Because if you're going to be a good reader, you got to be a good writer. So luckily, we're incorporating that in this professional learning. Oh, but in order to be a good writer, you have to know how to spell the words right? So there's going to be spelling involved. And then in order to be able to spell the words, you need to have oral language, which is right back where we started from, because as humans, our brains have evolved to develop oral language first. See how all that connects? And if you're missing that, and if you're not getting that, and if you're not being supported in doing that in the classroom, that work that's already hard becomes impossible. But it doesn't have to be. When we have great tools like LETERS, we have great places like Alabama and Mississippi that are supporting their teachers in getting this critical knowledge and skill. So when we think about how LETERS is designed, we cover the full gamut of supporting teachers and educators for reading and spelling. We start with the youngest or littlest learners, the first teachers beyond mama and daddy and grandmama, right? Those pre-K teachers of 3- and 4-year-old students. There's a whole cadre of teachers across Alabama, Mississippi, both, that have had the benefit of having their early childhood teachers that teach preschool students for LETERS with those professional learning strategies and components. But then our elementary educators as well, thinking about making sure they have that science of reading. So we're covering those educators. And then there's an administrator component. Yeah, the principal is the lead teacher in the building. That principal needs to be aware of the science of reading, because there's a possibility that they might not have gotten that when they were matriculating through college. So we make sure we cover everybody in the building that has any affect or any possible impact on our students. And I love that we provide that. And I want to leave you with this quote from Dr. Louisa Moats, our visionary and founder of LETERS. And when we talk about when teachers know better, they do better. Yeah, teachers that are empowered, that have the knowledge that they need, the skills that they need, they change students' lives. They can impact a student's life trajectory as far as where they go from when they were struggling and couldn't read the signs with their parents in the park to being able to sit in that back seat and enjoy. Was that a chocolate peppermint milkshake from Chick-fil-A? Don't all the babies need a Chick-fil-A milkshake? Yeah. So as we close, we also want to make sure that we can give some credence to our partners with Alabama and Mississippi. And as you can see from the 2 quotes here, we are so just overjoyed that we have visionary leadership in our great state of Alabama, as well as the great state of Mississippi. And being able to partner with them from the Voyager Sopris Learning, Lexia Learning, Alabama Reading Initiative, State Department aspect to bring these things together for teachers across these 2 great states makes the work that we do so meaningful and so valuable. And we thank all of you for your support. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you both for being with us and for explaining to us what LETERS are all about and the science of reading. Since I did not do it the first time, I'm back up again to introduce the rest of our panel, who will be coming onto the stage now. We're joined by Bonnie Short, who is the director, almost a year in, director of the Alabama Reading Initiative. Javonda Stonewall, who is a fourth grade teacher at Bluff Park Elementary in Hoover. And my colleague, Rachel Cochran, who will facilitate this conversation. And then there'll be opportunity for you to ask questions, thinking about your questions. So this is an informal conversation between the 5 panelists and you.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? Can you hear me? All right, good. So I think I want to start by giving Javonda and Bonnie just a chance to talk a little bit about the professional development and the infrastructure that needs to be in place to support teachers to be able to pull off some of the things that we've heard about. We know that good professional development is critical, but not sufficient to bring about lasting change in the classroom. So let's start with Javonda. What are some of the supports that you feel teachers need to be able to do these things and do them well?
All right, good morning. Can you hear me? All right, thank you. I'm used to speaking to 22 9-year-olds, so this is a bit different for me. Ms. Wheeler shared a slide that said 70% of our students need a highly qualified teacher. And what LETTERS does is takes me from a generalist to a specialist. I feel like I'm a specialist in reading. I have the tools to identify struggling readers early, intervene early, and alter my instruction to better serve them. I also have a coach, a reading coach, who is there to give me different tools or try different things or coach me in a lesson. And I just feel more prepared to take the readers to help identify the struggling readers and help them, not just identify them.
She mentioned about a coach, and I think that's one of the things about the Alabama Reading Initiative that is so absolutely incredible, because for every school, kindergarten, that has a kindergarten, first, second, or third grade student, regardless of what the configuration is. It could be a third grade through fifth grade school. It could be a kindergarten only school. They are allotted funds so that they can hire a local reading specialist. So there is somebody there in the school to support those teachers with their learning each and every day. On top of that, the Alabama Literacy Act has allowed us to have regional support. And so we have regional specialists in each of those schools, and the amount of time that they spend changes depending upon where the school is in the amount of support that they need. And so in some of our schools, there's somebody there almost every day, whereas we have some other schools and their data is showing us that they need less support. And so somebody goes to them at least quarterly. On top of that, we have regional literacy leadership specialists. And this idea is pretty instrumental in our success, because you can be a teacher in a classroom and you can do everything you want to. And regardless, she is going to make it happen in her classroom. But is it going to happen throughout the whole school? And if you don't have the proper leadership with the informed knowledge, you're up against a wall to make it happen in the whole school. So those regional leadership specialists go in and they coach principals and central office staff. They sit side by side with them and talk to them about structures that are going to help support their teachers and inform them about the things that they need in order to be better equipped. I think too about the fact that it's not just about the teachers that are in the classroom, but there are more that are involved in the big picture of things that we can't forget about, because there are special ed teachers out there and they need this knowledge too. So we're encouraging that aspect. And we have auxiliary teachers, our relationship with the Department of Early Childhood Education, like they are sending out LETTERS trainers for all of the pre-K teachers. So even though the Literacy Act is about K-3, we know if they get that good firm foundation in the Letters Early Childhood, we're going to be so much better equipped to support students with their ongoing knowledge. And then looking toward the universities, we've been working to partner with the universities to see how can we make this work better for you? What kind of support can we give you? We're not there yet. We've got a long way to go, but the conversation is there and we're starting.
We all know there are several things to impede teaching. Teachers are faced with so much, a lot. But this is one thing that makes me comfortable. This is one thing I can do. So I'm very thankful.
So I feel like we've thrown a lot at you guys in the last half hour. So are there questions? Are there things that you'd like to know more about? Anything on your mind? Yes, ma'am.
Did y'all hear that? Is this structured literacy kind of training available to parents? Could parents be force multipliers in this effort to?
I promise I didn't set her up with this question, but I'm so excited for it. Just in February, we hired somebody with the Alabama Reading Initiative staff. Her name is Bessie Morgan, and her primary focus is for family and community. We're working with her so that we can put out more information to support our families and our communities in understanding about the Alabama Literacy Act, but also how can you help your child? In December, we have a team of regional staff that work together to put together a newsletter. And that newsletter went out to parents before Christmas where they could have structured activities that would support their children through literacy. And we just released one for spring break too. So this is just the beginning of where we're going with the support. But I believe you're going to be seeing a lot more coming out in the upcoming years where we're working on developing some things to do just that.
Cassandra and Laura, what did Mississippi's resources for parents look like? What did they deploy that we might learn from?
In communication with Kristen Wellswin, who's the state literacy director for Mississippi, I have learned about outreach programs that they have developed through their RESA centers, I believe, where parents can come and receive resources and training on ways to work with their children at home. Similar to what Bonnie's saying that we're starting to implement here in Alabama. They've also developed some things through public television and other resources so that parents are more comfortable, particularly within that pre-K bracket, in how to develop oral language in their students, in their children before they become students, because of that vocabulary gap that exists with children who come from those low oral language homes is quite a significant gap.
If y'all will raise hands, I'm coming to you, and kind of pre-position. Joe's got a mic and I've got a mic, and we'll get your questions over the loudspeakers.
Hi, my name is Nancy Boyd and I'm here with the Blackburn Institute, but I actually work at a library. My question is, has there been any collaborations between the public library system and the schools with this, since we do a lot of reading prior to pre-K to teach some of the phonics to the staff so that they can assist?
I didn't plant her either. So there is a library specialist that's at the State Department, and in the last newsletter that we released, she's got a little piece in there where we're trying to connect these pieces together. Because if we're working in silos, of course, we're not going to be as effective. But as we work to bring in entities that we know can benefit us, I mean, what an awesome community support that is to make sure that we're utilizing that. And hopefully you're going to be busier than you've been in the past as we continue to implement and connect them to great places for families and communities to go. I personally would love to see some emphasis placed on all of our public libraries on access to decodable texts for these young readers, that parents can be guided towards how to find decodable text. That's just my 2 cents.
I think that's a beautiful idea.
Thank you.
I would stand up, only I just can't jump up right now. I hurt my back yesterday, but I work for the Alabama Public Library Service. I'm the Children's and Youth Services Consultant there. And we would be happy to partner with you in any way that we possibly can. And we're also starting a program right now that is out of the Bay Area Museum, Discovery Museum in California. It's called Reimagining School Readiness. And it does comprise a lot of the elements that you're talking about, and also early math skills. So please contact us, and I would be willing to partner with you in any way, shape, or matter that we can.
I'm gonna go a little rogue, and I'm heading on over to give you my card and my phone number. Never miss an opportunity, right?
Hi, it works. Irina Pritchett with Regions Bank. So we've talked about parents and libraries. What about local nonprofits? So many that focus on mentoring and tutoring. Are there partnerships or resources happening there?
Okay, so we have some grants that are kind of in action that we're hoping will come through, where we are looking at some of these nonprofit organizations to be able to support, where we can take the family and community part and have them go and support that entity. We can have our regional specialists support the coaching of the individuals who will be tutoring, so that they're informed tutors and can support that entity better.
Hi, I'm Joel Smith. I work for a nonprofit in Birmingham called STARE Birmingham. We do after-school reading tutoring for first and second graders who are struggling in reading. Also, I'm a former special education teacher and reading coach. I'm a big believer in coaching, excited about those provisions of the bill. But I have a concern that I wonder if y'all can kind of help to address here. The states who were predecessors to this legislation, Florida and Mississippi, it's good to see a rising tide floating all boats. But I think one issue that often gets ignored, and Ryan mentioned it earlier in the math piece, is that even after this rising tide, there's still a 21-point gap between Black and white student achievement in Mississippi. There's still a 21-point gap in Florida, and in Alabama, it's a 28-point gap. Of course, we're fully gone through the process of enacting legislation. So my question is to the point of science and reading and it's about embodied brain science, what we know about embodied learning. And I want to read a quote here. Arguably, the representation of students' language and culture as deficient contributes to student alienation that some see as a root cause of high level of school failure in non-middle class communities. So I'm curious, with regards to that form of embodied learning, what kids bring to the table, their ways of knowing, their emotional experiences that they have to use to make connections in reading. How does the science of reading program and letters specifically address that connection point in those early years?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Well, there were some slides that we didn't get an opportunity to show, but when you're going through the letters curriculum or the letters, less professional learning, the first unit talks about the brain research and how important understanding the reading brain. And then the next piece we kind of dive into is understanding the simple view of reading, where word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. And that morphs into, and as simple as that is, it gets even more complex than that. We have something that's called Scarborough's rope, and that identifies the different facets that are encompassed during word recognition and the strands that are encompassed during language comprehension to get to skilled reading, to get to where reading is prosodic and it sounds like speech. And so within those strands, particularly in the language comprehension strand, there are components that lean into and give respect to children's how the children come into that classroom environment. And so the very first piece of that is their background. For each and every one of us, our backgrounds are different. Our life experiences are different. And as long as we continue to live and grow and move and have our being, we will continue to develop skills and we will continue to have experiences that lend itself to impact what our backgrounds are that we're bringing into, in this case, a reading lesson or a literacy environment. The second piece of that is our vocabulary. And, you know, Dr. Moats has this phrase where she says, students speak the language that they receive love at home, right? So if in my house, I say, ooh, that's a big old dog. But Laura says, ooh, that's an enormous dog. We're saying the same thing, right? But my language is big old and hers is enormous. Over time, because the language also develops over time, like our life experiences, I'm going to add to my vocabulary. I'm going to add to my lexicon, my personal usable vocabulary. I can eventually get to a word such as enormous. But in the meantime, it doesn't make my big old wrong. And it doesn't make her enormous right. That's the language that we use in my household. That's what she uses in her household. But that teacher who is the bridge builder and closes that gap and supports that instruction meets the needs of every child where they are, no matter what their background is, no matter what their vocabulary is. And that's why having that structured literacy, where you have explicit, direct, leaving nothing to chance, in your face instruction, levels the playing field because you're not guessing and making adjustments. You're only doing that based on how you're teaching, what you're teaching, when you're teaching, and to whom, because of the fact that every child comes together and they bring their background and their vocabulary. Now, that strand, that's just the first two. Those strands go much deeper on the language comprehension side. But that's why when teachers have an opportunity to experience letters, this professional learning, this science of reading, that as we saw on the slide, almost half of our colleges and universities have not gotten on board with that yet. So how else will a teacher who's already in the classroom, who's got years of experience under her belt, how else will her administrator, who's been administrating for years and years and missed it when they were matriculating through college, how else do they get a chance to get exposed to that? And so this letters movement, as I call it, what's gone through Mississippi, what's currently happening in Alabama, that's why this movement is so important. Because if you think about these statistics, first thing, there's some data that talks about when students leave first grade, not reading on a first grade level, the chance that they'll ever have to be a proficient reader is pretty slim, unless something is done to intervene for them. Now we're going back to structured literacy, explicit systematic instructional routines. But then here's some more research. It says that in grades K through 3, if students have 1 year where things don't go right, maybe there's an unskilled teacher, they're not using a high quality core instruction. If they have 1 year of that between K through 3, those children can take a year or two to recover from that. Then it gets more dire. It says in grades K through 3, if they have 2 years of this, 2 years of an insufficient instruction, 2 years at some point of a teacher not being skilled, not knowing what to teach and how to teach it, those children would take 2, 3, 4, or more, or never. Now we're still in our pandemic. COVID-19 has affected 3 consecutive school years. Imagine the children prior to the pandemic that were already struggling coming into the pandemic. Think about where they are right now. Think about the kids that weren't struggling, that were maybe on target and doing well, and they've had 3 years of interrupted instruction. So that's going to impact as well. And so when you think about the dynamic and the demographic that I represent, that's why the focus of what we do and how deliberately we do it with the science of reading and all the things that we know now that we didn't know way back when, that we know now, you know, when we know better, we should be able to do better. And that's why the support of everybody in this room to be aware of what structured literacy is, what Alabama and Mississippi both are doing in concert with that, and what letters can provide for teachers that they've not had a chance to experience prior to being in the classroom.
I can say that in our classroom for the last 2 years that we have been doing the science of reading, we've actually helped to close the Black-white achievement gap, which means that our Black students are growing at an accelerated pace compared to their white peers since we've been doing the science of reading program.
I want to thank you all for your time and your insights this morning. Our speakers will be with us throughout the morning, so if you'd like to visit with them, please do so. They'll be down around. You know, as an organization that focuses